Nowadays, so many people are convinced that poverty is simply the idea, or at least the physical thing, of not having money. Not having enough cash, not being able to buy the car, or rent out the apartment, or the house, or the security, or having anything to your bank account, or tied to your name. However, I believe that that is an outdated definition, or at least an outdated process, because in the modern world, poverty has evolved. It's evolved from something of just being poor to now being starved. Today, the poorest people are not the ones without the money. Instead, they're the ones without the attention. They're the ones without time, without focus, and without some sort of dedication to a goal. They are poor, at least by my definition, because they sold it all for some false entertainment. Think about it with me for just a second. How much of your day is spent consuming instead of creating? Scrolling and watching and listening and distracting yourself with any means necessary. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Hours will vanish away and you'll call it relaxing or cooling down after work. But instead, what you're actually doing is trading the only wealth that you'll ever have tied to your name. And the only wealth that you'll ever truly own is your own, which is your attention and your time, for absolutely nothing. If you think about it and you quantify it down to a smaller scale, that entertainment is gone. I don't think you could tell me the last 2 TikToks you watched. All it really is just empty calories for the brain. It's like eating a sugar sandwich. Like there's absolutely nothing for your brain. And it's just junk food for the soul. And the terrifying part about that is that the trade is invisible. And you don't feel robbed. You don't feel like something's been stolen from you. Instead, you feel entertained. And that is like, it's the perfect scam, man. Some people should take notes because that is one of the best robberies ever in history. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius said that you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Now imagine if death had come for you tonight. Sorry, very morbid, but just imagine it with me for a moment. Would you be proud that you spent your final days binging shows and scrolling through a different stranger's life? Or would you feel robbed? Would you feel like that time was stolen away from you? Well, hopefully if you're watching this video and you've at least come 2 minutes in, you'd understand that you have been robbed. That second concept applies. You're not happy watching somebody else fulfill your dreams. And the truth, the actual truth, is that you're robbing yourself every single time you bow down to that altar of endless entertainment known as TikTok, social media, blah, 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 video games. And the uncomfortable reality about that is that the average person spends more time consuming content than building their future and attaining their dream. They spend more time watching other people live than actually living their own life. And then they wonder why they feel so empty and they feel like there's a void in their heart and why life feels so shallow and all that bullshit. Because poverty nowadays is not just about the bank account anymore. Instead, it's about the mind and it's about the value that you give towards your time. It's about the fact that you've been taught to burn your most valuable resources, your energy and your focus and your imagination on things that leave you absolutely nothing in return. Look at the people you admire, the people you look up to on these social media apps, the ones who build, the ones who create, and the ones who move the world. They consume far less than they actually produce. They don't spend their nights scrolling, their mornings glued to screens. They're not rich because they have money. Instead, they're rich because they've taken ownership of their time. And that, in turn, leads to taking ownership of their focus, and then that brings money. And the more attention you give to your own time and the more value you give to the actions you output into the world, the more you will receive. And where it gets darker is here. It's that entertainment isn't free. You think that you're watching all these social media apps for absolutely nothing. You're paying nothing. But in reality, you are paying. And you're paying with your ambition. You're paying with your self-respect. And you're paying with the discipline that you could have built in those hours. And that is why I call it poverty. Because you wake up with less of yourself every single time you do it. You're physically selling yourself. That is the thing that you're losing, and that is why you're now considered poor in my eyes. Now, Friedrich Nietzsche warned about this when he said, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." But your why is so consumed by trivial pleasures and by shallow distractions, then the how destroys you. It ends up overpowering you. You start to lose your clarity and you start to lose your hunger, and then you become soft, and then everything just starts to crumble. And we already know that soft men don't change the world. The brutal truth, I'm going to tell you this is my final truth, is that entertainment makes you broke. It doesn't make you broke in terms of money, that comes later once you're broke in spirit, broke in purpose, and broke in the discipline that it takes to actually shape a life and then in turn create that money. And if you do not take this message seriously, you're going to waste decades thinking that you're fine because you're comfortable. However, comfort is simply a cage and entertainment is the lock that keeps you inside it. I'm not saying that you should never enjoy and never rest. No, that's not the point. Don't be foolish. The point is to have proportion. Now, we all know balance is preached as if it's heaven, but I think balance is some sort of lie which lazy people use to say, oh, I've done enough work today, let me rest. However, you do need some contingency of balance for this concept at least. Entertainment should be the seasoning on the meal, the salt and pepper, not the actual meal itself. However, for most people nowadays, it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then dessert. And then they wonder why they're starving for some sort of meaning because they spent all their food, all their food stamps on fucking entertainment. So I'm going to ask you this finally. What would your life look like if you swapped half your entertainment for effort? Instead of watching someone else chase their dreams, what if you chased your own? Instead of escaping reality through your screen, you built one worth not escaping or worth not having to run away to a screen. That is what I believe is the real wealth, and that is what makes you rich compared to a man with a lot of money. Attention, focus, and purpose. And the only way you're ever going to attain that and achieve that is by starving the addiction to entertainment, by reclaiming those hours and moments you spend, by remembering that every single second you waste, you are never going to get back. Every single second you spend watching one more reel, or just one more scroll, or just one more game, you will never get that time back. Because at the end of the day, poverty is not about being broke, like I've said. Poverty is instead wasting your life on things that leave you so empty. And the richest man in the world is the sole man who owns himself. Thank you.